What Minnesota has that we're missing?
Yes, at this time.
Yeah, I'm not answering that.
We got everything we need.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Appreciate your time and insight.
This question is for Coach. Coach, if you include the finals, this is Kayla McBride's fifth straight game of 18 points.
The New York Liberty dropped 2 games to the Minnesota Lynx. As you can see, the players don't really want to compare these two teams, but I think we kind of have to. We'll talk about that and more on today's episode of Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans. Gotta get up, gotta get up, gotta get up. Hey, women's basketball fans, welcome to Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans, brought to you by Black Rosie Media and hosted by Erica L. Ayala. Hello, New York Liberty fans. Welcome to another episode of Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans, hosted by Erica L. Ayala. That is me, but also by our man, Brian Florentin. B-Man, how we living?
What's up? What's up? So I'm feeling kind of proud of myself today. So after I finished work, I was like, you know what? I'm a little bit tired. I'm gonna take a nap. Make sure I get up right on time. Took my nap, woke up a little bit on time. I was like, let me just get myself ready. Here I am.
I love it. Well, we are glad to have you. We know it was an eventful week for the New York Liberty, a new Ring of Honor inductee. We finally solved the debate with legends and rings, or any kind of, award, prize, championship representation. We'll talk about that. But these 2 games, the most recent games against the Minnesota Lynx, Brian, we have to talk about it. Has this team, but more so have we as the armchair GMs, have we learned anything about this New York Liberty team that we didn't know? I want to get into all of that. So if you are watching, we know Damien was going to pop in here. If you are watching, let us know what you think about the New York Liberty, where they stand. Hey, what's up, Jay Jordan? We appreciate y'all so much. But I played the clip, Brian. I'm going to play it again. There was a question that one of our colleagues asked that, Natasha Cloud and Jonquil Jones didn't necessarily appreciate. But, I want to dissect it a little bit. Not so much the exchange, but the root of the question. Let's get to that.
What Minnesota has that we're missing?
Yes, at this time.
Yeah, I'm not answering that.
We got everything we need.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Appreciate your time and insight.
This question is for Coach. Coach, if you include the finals, this is Kayla McBride's fifth straight game of 18 points.
So we're going to hear more from the team, or from Tosh, JJ, and Coach Sandy Brondello. So again, I don't want to really litigate the reporting part of it. I do wonder, when you are a team that is coming into a season looking to make another championship run, you're the reigning champions, and you lose 2 games to the team that is in first place right now. Is it fair to ask if the team that's ahead of you in the standings has something that you don't have?
I would say yes. So within that dynamic, I feel like everybody played their part, right? Because when you lose in a way that they did, it's like, what are you guys not doing right compared to them? And on the other side, I'm not gonna throw my teammates under the bus in a public setting. Like, if there's something that we're missing, they'll know when we talk about it privately, and especially as we prepare for our third matchup next weekend. So that part played out right. When it comes to the meat and bones of it, I think for Minnesota, I was thinking about it as I was coming in. They're a lot bigger than what they were last year, because when I think of their rotation last year, it was Lan, Fee, and then they made the trade for Maisha Hines-Allen because they didn't have enough size. And then in the finals, the Liberty were able to play Maisha off the court. Like, if you look at her minutes totals, it just decreases gradually. And then one game, they have her on the court, but she was there for maybe like half a second, so that doesn't count. So they effectively played her off the court last year. This year, when if he gets back, you have Lan, who's been amazing and might be my defensive player of the year next to Gabby Williams. Jess Shepard is back from taking a year off in 2024. Their backup big, Kurilova, was really good as well, too. And something that Minnesota has done well, especially if you go back to the regular season and Commissioner's Cup meetings last year, they do a really good job of... I'm going to have dinner a little bit later, so Amir, we're thinking of you in this moment. I think going back to last year, if you go through the 3 regular season meetings and the Commissioner's Cup games, they do a very good job of keeping the paint closed off. Like it's hard to get the ball in the paint. Minnesota was doing a lot of fronting in the post. So usually, if you try to throw over the top, there's a help side defender ready to pick a pass off. The Liberty had a bad habit yesterday of trying to force stuff into the post instead of like going through their second, third actions, which they sometimes don't do against this team, and it's like, oh, that's interesting. I'll come back to that.
Yeah, Jay Jordan. Sometimes we got to read these. We can't assume everyone's looking at the screen.
Yeah.
Looking ahead, just got the alert. Isabel Harrison in concussion protocol and out for tomorrow. Yeah, we definitely want to come back to that, but let's let Brian finish that thought. But yeah, see, this is what happens when you record live, Brian.
Yeah, like I think for Minnesota, they did a really good job of fronting the post of getting it into JJ and Emma. And like Emma was good early, but like they were able to shut that off. And then the deeper the game got, especially after halftime, those driving lanes for the Liberty weren't there. Because in the first half, they were getting to the cup. Like they were getting there, they were having success at the rim and getting into the paint. But after halftime, it dried up. And I think that's where their perimeter defense really shined through. And Dejanay Carrington, as far as like the trade pickups this season, might be the big winner so far. Emma is a big move, but Dejanay as a trade piece is the early winner of move of the year so far, and she was really excellent. And I think for New York, it's a situation where they'll have to study up to see what's going on to make sure how they can get back paint against this team, because they won last year by being big. So playing with size against Minnesota is something they're comfortable with and can do. So I'm thinking of that. And there's a positive I could take away from the game that leads to some fascinating questions down the line, but I might save that for later.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of what you hit on, the players also talked about in that post game. Again, fair or foul, we'll kind of talk about that throughout. But I do think, again, even this comment from Damien, Minnesota exposed New York for the second time. It's frustrating, troubling, and concerning. I think it's definitely frustrating, troubling, and concerning. I'm not so sure about that, but we will talk about it. But before we do that, let's hear from Tosh and JJ talking about a lot of the things, honestly, that Brian just discussed.
I think a lot of teams do the same. I think they try to push it at us in transition defense. I think right now people really are trying to test our toughness, and that's what I'm excited to see is the response from this team about our toughness, because I don't know about y'all, but no one's going to continue to bitch us, and that's in like the most respectful way of like we have to show up, and if someone throws the first punch, we got to be able to counter punch that, and that's what I'm looking for. Sorry, I know we cussing. I have an Aussie to the left of me, but yeah, we need to show up in the toughness aspect.
I give Minnesota credit. We didn't make them feel uncomfortable, and they made us feel really uncomfortable. Some of the passes we threw, no one was open, especially into the. I don't know what we're looking at. I think we were just a little bit rattled. We got to settle them down. I've got to do a better job of settling them down there, and because usually against this team in the last game we didn't have many turnovers, but we gave them offensive rebounds, and that was another area that has been hurting us, and we've got to be better.
Tosh, wanted to come back to you. It seemed like offensively you were able to find a little bit of a rhythm. Considering there have been a lot of changes with rotations and lineups and everything, where would you say you sit right now with your game and the team, and what are you focused on contributing like you did tonight?
I think first and foremost, my hat is hung on the defensive end. I'm one of our primary guards on the perimeter, so for me, Courtney is my assignment tonight, and to make things hard, Courtney's a hell of a player, but to try to tire her out as much as possible, make her shoot contested jump shots, and then on the other end, I think a lot of this is pushing pace. I'm getting a lot of my points in transition or off of kickouts right now, which is fine, being ready to shoot when those opportunities come. But I think I can do a better job of facilitating and putting us in offenses, realizing when JJ hasn't gotten touches, realizing when Emma hasn't touched the ball, or easier ways to get Sav the ball with how they're playing her right now. I think I can be better for us in those aspects. But yeah, I'm just trying to, no matter who we have in, that's not an excuse. We still have, and we play a way of basketball that is positionless, and that players should be able to fill in. We just have to be more intentional about what those actions are.
I think they
I want to stop there for a minute because, there's a lot, Brian, that Tosh was saying in that last piece. But, first of all, what she made clear is that, if you were listening, you heard her language, but she basically is like, this team is not going to get punked again. And we kind of got punked. They were a team that felt that they could kind of throw the first punch, but after they started receiving, some jabs, they got a little off balance, so to speak. Brian, what do you make of that aspect? Not only that perhaps this was a soft game from New York, but to kind of go with the theme of today's episode, do they have enough toughness to be able to combat what they have seen from Minnesota?
Yeah, one thing that I thought was interesting among the string of comments was Sandy sort of taking the hit for letting the group sort of like tire out a bit. Because there was one stretch, I want to say mid-second quarter, where it was about like 4 or 5 minutes of straight game action with no break in between. And in moments like that, especially in physical games like this against a great opponent who's locked in for you specifically, you sometimes you have to strike the balance between letting the game ride through or giving your group like a little bit of a breather to sort of like regain their bearings a bit. So I think that's something that they can do a little bit more closely as far as like taking a few more timeouts, just buying your key players those extra moments where you can get them. And with it being a national TV game, you have the added benefits of longer commercial breaks as well too. So you can sneak in a few more seconds here and there. That'll prove vital down the stretch. But I think to the Tosh point of it all, I love that comment in particular because I know a lot of times teams would be like, especially in 2023, they're like, oh, what are they going to do? They're not about anything. Oh, we can push them around. We can do this. We can do that. Like we didn't get much of that last year, and by and large, we really haven't gotten that this year, even when they went through a little bit of a slump. So I think for Tosh, sort of like putting a pin in that comment, being like, okay, you're not going to punk us. You're not going to outmuscle us. You're not going to out-physical us. And especially when Minnesota is fully healthy, presumably if we see them again deeper down the line, because Fee won't be back, I don't think, by next week or the game after, which 3 straight games for them, long story of schedule. But I think when they are at full strength, we won't really have that moment of teams trying to think they can out physical them, because New York is a big team and a physical team. Like they won a championship by being extra physical in a game that required a level of physicalness that the referees are going to be like, hey, you five, play ball. We're not calling anything. And New York was able to break the glass ceiling by doing that. So I think it's a good thing to sort of like highlight for the team. And as one of the team leaders, Tosh can set the tempo when it comes to that. And especially with the back-to-back coming up, they're going to need to have that toughness because it's not going to be easy. And then they have another date with Minnesota next Saturday. So they'll need that.
Yeah, again, you hit on a lot of things that we heard in post-game that we were able to talk with players outside the locker room about. And you mentioned also Sandy kind of taking responsibility. But there's also something with regard to if this team was able to make adjustments, if this team or why they couldn't find the gas, so to speak, in the second half. And I think Sandy and the players talked about that. So let's go back to the clip.
Did all of us. They were three-quarter fronting and they were denying it and they were blowing up action. They did a good job of getting through screens. They started switching. We were trying to pass it to the mismatch where we didn't see the weak side rotations. They were just sitting in the paint. So I think we just got narrow focus where we got to make sure we're reading defenses better. Emma's a smart player. She'll bounce back from this. With we didn't create enough space for her. There was 2 people on her, or we're trying to shoot over a big player. That wasn't the best option.
Like historically, like when we played them, even last year, they do a really good job of just congesting the paint.
making us make that skip pass, and I think tonight I don't think we made the skip pass maybe 2 times, and we tried to force it in the paint, and I think that's why we had so many turnovers. So I think they do a good job as a team to really just congest everything, and we'll learn from it and watch film and get better.
In the first half, you guys were able to get a lot of driving lanes to the basket and get to the rim, but in the second, those sort of really dried up. As you sort of get ready for the road, how do you sort of want to see the offense try to regain and get those shots back at the rim again?
Yeah, they're flushing us off the line, but then their rotations were on point. They're up and in of us. We've got to get more aggressive on the reversal and attacking closeouts. I didn't think we did that as well as we did in game one. And that comes down to our spacing as well, too, and being really intentional with our movement off the ball. I just think we got narrow focus. We didn't, we didn't have the spacing or the cutting that to obviously change how we wanted to attack them. So, it's an opportunity for us to be better. The good thing is we get to play them again soon and we can learn from the mistakes we made today.
I mean, and what I appreciate in that closing clip there, Brian, is, it's actually the thumbnail, right? The title of this episode, talking about this team being narrow focused. And, it's maybe not exactly the terminology that we've used, Brian, but we have talked about how this team can't seem to, do multiple things and add multiple things at times. It just felt like, at times this team was really focused on pace, but maybe not so much, as we've heard in these clips as well, offensive rebounds or turning the ball over because, I think that as Minnesota in particular, and not something that this team hasn't seen before, but as they're blitzing right towards Sabrina, bringing a trap and bringing a double, that is more often than not going to mean that Sabrina is trying to get that entry pass in while she's off balance. So yes, you do need it's usually JJ or Emma to come up and try to set that screen. But what we started seeing in the second half in particular, and I forget who it was who talks about this, but the team fatigue, you could tell, mentally for some players, physically for others. Jones seemed to be physically struggling a little bit. She looked fatigued. She looked tired. And I think that goes back to what you were saying, right, about the size of Minnesota and how they were able to disrupt. But the quickness, I think, of their guards supported what their post players were doing to make things physical.
Yeah, I saw a really interesting comment from Keegan. It was like in a 2-piece as far as like getting the ball inside, and I think what Keegan, I don't want to assume Jenna did that. Like that's the comment right there. Thank you. I think in combination with that comment and saying these analysis of them not reversing, not moving off the ball, not hitting the second, third action in the offense, that's where I think that's where the fatigue can go in, but also that's where getting thrown off your square can go into effect too, because usually this offense can get the open person. If they see a mismatch, they get it there pretty quickly. They're usually on time and they play with that tempo and pace to really get, okay, I see a mismatch. There's a small and a big, we get it inside. We make something work from there. And then everything flows off of that. So they were like a half second behind comparatively speaking. For Jay, I would say that I wouldn't say it's like a blame per se. I think it's just one of those things where it's just sometimes in the flow of a basketball game, you just sort of like lose out on opportunities that were there, because there were a couple of turnovers where it was just completely, I was like, what are they doing? Like there's one where they inbounded a ball with no one from the Lynx back there. Then it just bounced to Ryan Rucco and Rebecca Lobo at the table. And there's another one. JJ blocks Natisha Heidemann, dribbles between her legs at half court. The Lynx pick it off and then score a layup. And then that takes us from a 9-point game with the crowd rising and getting back into a game to 11-point game where it's like, okay, this is over. So it was just like a sort of like potpourri of foolishness yesterday for the Liberty, I would say.
Potpourri.
I love that word. Yeah, it's like I think that it was like a sort of like blend of foolishness yesterday, but I think it's stuff that can all be corrected. And I think for this in particular, especially with Meesseman taking on a bigger role as she gets more and more acclimated, and on the JJ side, getting further and further away from her ankle injury and getting her conditioning and cardio to where she wants it to be, where she can and might have to now with Izzy out take on a bigger role. So you have that room there to experiment. But I was talking about it yesterday. I think we might have talked about it too. Like a player that I think should get more run and solves a lot of the off-ball cutting movement issues is Rebecca Gardner. Like Beck is good. Like she's done well in her minutes. Like she's always looking to get to the rim. She's always cutting off ball. Like I think that she's a good fit for this roster, and she does well. And I was thinking last week about it. I was thinking of Beck as, hey, get Leo a little bit more of a break kind of thing. But Beck as a actual rotation player is solid to me. She'll probably have to play tomorrow because they're down 4 people now instead of the usual 3. So we'll see her more, and we'll sort of like judge how the off-ball movement, cutting, and things like that operate. But I think that's where you can plug a player, a smart, solid vet like Gardner who knows the offense in and out. I think her insertion into the rotation would help that out and sort of clean up some of those backline mistakes.
Yeah, for sure. I hear where you're coming from, and I'm trying to decide where some of her minutes would come from. It looks like MJ is being trusted to do a lot more, which I think is good. I think the challenge with Marine Johannes is still a little bit of timing and patience defensively, and in a different way, but more generally, I do think Rebecca Gardner sometimes gets caught in that cycle as well. And so I think that for me, I just want to see how they're utilized, because, catching some ticky-tack fouls, those two seem to attract those. Sometimes I think they're warranted, sometimes they're not. But I think that's a little bit for me of the hang up. I think, like, I hear what you're saying, and that's like just a little piece that I would bring to the conversation. And as far as offensively, if we were to compare Johannes to Gardner, I don't think they play the exact same role, but they are more, maybe you could swing Gardner, but I still think of them more as backcourt support as opposed to front court. Especially with as big as the lineup can be now for the New York Liberty. So I think that offensively speaking, they're not exactly like for like. They score kind of in different ways, but I think the result is about the same, on any given night.
Yeah, I would say that MJ she's almost like a microwave scorer off the bench, whereas you get her in, you need that jolt of energy. Like she'll get you those shots pretty quickly, especially if you feel like the offense is sort of dying on the vine. MJ can get her shot wherever she needs it to. So I think that she gives a different punch to this lineup, and especially if you want to try to like sneak Sabrina a little bit more rest, or if you think that you can run without Tosh for a little bit longer and having or Sab slide down the spot, or just have MJ run the offense for a little bit, you can do that. And I think I trust her enough to make the right basketball play each time down, even if sometimes like you can live with that's an interesting shot, but it goes in. So I think you allow that sort of like ingenuity within the flow of the attack. And I think for Gardner, it's more of like a solid, okay, I need this done. Beck can do that. And then she can give you a little bit more in this area. Like she's a good spot up shooter. Like she's not really great above the break as far as 3-point shooting, but being in the corner, spotting up, because defenses love to sort of like sag off and try to like block Jonquil when she's in the paint, or now Emma. So having Beck in the corners who confidently shoots those threes, which I think is important. Like sometimes shooters may not have the confidence to take those shots, and then teams just sort of like get more disrespectful with playing off of you. But Beck takes those shots with confidence, and I feel like that confidence, and then just that knowledge of moving off the ball, getting to the rim, things like that, allows New York to have another dimension with her in there. So I think for the Liberty, the goal now is getting fully healthy. I think if that's the number one job for the rest of the season, like get everyone healthy. Stewie's hoping to be back in about 2 weeks or so. That's her stated public goal. So that's going to be critical, getting Niara and KB back. Hopefully Izzy's not too down bad with the concussion protocol. So we're hoping she's okay. And then when this group is back, they have a little bit of time to get fully acclimated with Meesseman and everyone else before the playoffs start mid-September.
Yeah, and that's kind of what Sandy Brondello was alluding to the other day at shoot around. So this was before the Dallas game, that she was really aiming by end of August to have everybody back. And then we did hear from Brianna Stewart, who gave an update. She talked about as far as the injury, the bone bruise. And we alluded to this on the podcast, but she confirmed that it was on her way running down the court, that she kind of just upon impact, that's where she felt the bone bruise. And to her, to use kind of her terminology, she effectively was saying, yeah, it was probably there for a little while. It was just kind of that one step was, we took it too far. So, because if you look at that play, she's running down the court on the offensive, attacking the basket, I should say, and she misses a layup. It didn't look like there was any contact or anything really. She just kind of missed it. And you're kind of like, oh, that's a little odd. Okay. And then she starts running back, and again, no contact. And she had to pull up and be like, yeah, I can't go anymore. So, but I wouldn't be surprised if Stewie was playing with a bone bruise the way she plays. That's wild though. But you alluded to it, that she spoke to media. And just for those who don't know, it's not traditional. As a matter of fact, players absolutely have no obligation to talk to media when they are injured. So if they are on the injured list for a game, there's no obligation to do media. Now, sometimes they do, as did Stewie yesterday for us, Brian. Also, Megan Gustafson has done media while she was injured, but to talk specifically about a new children's book that she released this month or is releasing this month. Yeah. So I'm not sure if it's released yet, but it's coming if it's not already. But anyway, Stewie wants to be back on the court, Brian, by her birthday, which also follows what Sandy said with everyone being back by the end of this month.
What is this? What season is this? God, I'm so terrible at this. Like, is it?
Astrologically speaking, I have no idea.
Yeah, I feel like the chat will help me out here, but I don't know.
Tell us. Yeah. I have no idea. I know my season, and that's really all.
Yeah, all I know is Pisces is in March. I'm like, all right, that's all I got to know. Everyone else, y'all got it. But I think for Stewie, getting her back. So if her birthday is the 27th, and the Liberty play a game on the 25th at home against Connecticut, a Monday night game, if I'm not mistaken. So if she's back by then, hopefully the rest of the group is healthy enough by that point, so we can sort of see how she can reintegrate into the flow of things. And I think we were talking about the off-ball movement earlier, like with Beck specifically. I think Stewie is such a great off-ball player as well too, and she's always timely with her cuts to the basket, and having a big like Meesseman in the high post who always is able to find the right angle, right passing angle. She and Sabrina have really gotten off to a great start as far as like those dribble handoffs at the top of the key. So I'd love to sort of see how Emma can flow in and get Stewie some easier shots in the offense. And I think seeing what lineups they run and what they try to experiment with is going to be really crucial coming down the stretch, because I think you can go 3 forwards, heck 4 forwards if you just have Leo, and then like 1 guard. If you wanted to, you could slide. There's so many different fun combinations they can turn to. I don't even want to say them out loud yet, because I want to see what everything looks like. But it's a lot of good opportunities for this group. And the only bad part about it is they won't get a chance to sort of like do like a little test run against Minnesota, because by the time Stewie would hope to be back, the Minnesota regular season series will be finished up. So you won't get the highest quality opponent to test it up against. But having about 2-3 weeks to really sort of like iron things out, I think is going to be critical for this group. So I think we're good. Aww.
I love it.
Their rim percentage is pretty good. Yeah, I know the misses are loud, but they're usually solid.
Yeah. So apparently it's Leo season right now.
Okay, thank you
We
guys.
wish it was Leo season. But that being said, Stewie is a Virgo. So that tracks. I know very, very little about Virgo, except that other people seem to know a lot about Virgo and had a lot of thoughts, but those might very much be connected exclusively to Beyonce. That's what I know about Virgos.
I think she got a song called "Gift from Virgo" or
Virgo's Groove, right?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
Yeah.
I need to listen to that album again. It's been
Yeah.
too long. I need to get back on it.
So anyway, yeah, I want to come back to this about the size differences between the Liberty and how Liberty teams maybe can wear other teams out. And I think it goes back to something, Brian, that you were kind of touching on. For me, the New York Liberty, it's about what are the things that they can do. So if we look at points in the paint, Minnesota has been able to keep up with, and then some, the New York Liberty this season. If we look at also bench points, I mean, Dejanay Carrington went off, but it was 34 points to 19. I also saw a comment saying like the Liberty are already gassed or already worn down and the season isn't over. Yeah, I mean, because a lot of what we're talking about just in those statistics alone, bench points and points in the paint, were drastically impacted by the absences, including sometimes overlapping, of Leonie Fibish, of Jonquel Jones, of Niara Sabali, of Kennedy Burke, and of Brianna Stewart. That's 5 post players with range who can also bring the ball up and pass. That's going to impact your offense. It just is. I mean, that's size, that's strength, that's perimeter shooting, that's rim protection, huge. That's huge.
Yeah.
And again, they weren't all missing always at the same time. And actually, I don't think JJ and Stewie were ever out at the same time. But okay, JJ comes back and then you lose Brianna Stewart, your 2 MVPs, so and while that's not an excuse, the usage that you're getting now from players because of that is impacted immediately. They like everybody else has to eat up the minutes. And so that's sometimes a folly when you do have a player like Jonquel Jones, but especially Brianna Stewart. And if we ever get there with Sab again, the challenge that it comes to having to address rotations when they play 30 plus minutes, it's significant.
Yeah. It's almost like for the baseball fans in the room, you have a great bullpen. What makes a great bullpen not a great bullpen? If you have to go to them all the time.
Just say you're talking about the New York Mets. I mean, I mean, like, pick a year, Brian. I don't even know that I know enough about the bullpen this year, and yet the fact that that's still valid. But that's a podcast for somewhere else. That's not our podcast. We'll have to commiserate elsewhere on that. But it's like you were saying, Brian. Like trying to draw a comp when you have a great bench, right? Or you have a great relief system. But if you're always going to them, then they're going to be overworked for what their general workload usually is. Not that they can't do more, but there's an adjustment period. And I think that's what we've seen when it comes to communication. I think that's what we've seen when it comes to the ability to run up the score It's not necessarily happening with the New York Liberty now. And that's because you need players like Tosh Cloud to get more confident shooting, which I think we saw in that Minnesota game. You need Beck Gardner, like you were saying, and like we have seen in the chat, to be like, yeah, I'm going to take my shot. Even Emma Meesseman, great in the first 2 games, right? But there was a little hesitation on what her role was or where the green light was for her. I'm waving like this is not what you do with a light, but you get the point. It's just more dramatic this way. Like, I guess I could have done that. I don't know. Did she have the green? I don't know. This is how I saw it, right? Because I do think Emma understands that as a post player, you don't always need to be shooting from the perimeter. And I think she was hesitating, not because she can't make those shots. We've seen her make those shots throughout her career. I think she was hesitating because it's like, is this the shot that I want this defense to get used to me taking?
Yeah.
Or is there a better shot for me? Am I the person that should be taking this shot? I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, Brian, but just knowing how heady of a player she is, the hesitation was not with her own ability. I think the hesitation is where you saw her trying to effectively code switch. And on this team, does she have the green light, or is she only to take those shots in certain situations?
Yeah. I think that, my brain, when I see like a tall player, is like, get yourself in the paint, big fella. Like, so I feel like I naturally gravitate towards that every time. But then in a game like yesterday, when the paint is so congested and the ball movement is sort of stuck in the way that it is, it's hey, how about I draw you out a little bit more to sort of like unclog and space things out a little bit better? So I think that's where the Emma piece of it okay, we'll get you more acclimated. You'll get more used to our spacing principles. And then your passing, you know how to play and you know how to make things work in that regard. I think that's where the fine tuning comes in a little bit more. And I think that not in the all caps now. I think that's where you sort of like figure it out and sort of fine tune it a little bit more. And I think for this group, tomorrow night's going to be an interesting challenge for LA, because I was thinking about it. This amazingly is the very first time they will be seeing Miss Cameron Brink. Like last year, Cam got hurt literally the day.
Right. That's right.
Yeah, she unfortunately got hurt in Connecticut, like right before they were going to come to New York for a weekend set. And then this year she was drawing close, but then made her debut at home after the Sparks left New York. So it's going to be a fun challenge to see a young big like that who is really good at timing blocks, which is going to be a good challenge. And also the one problem for like young bigs is that they tend to hack a lot and can be hacking sometimes.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. That's a really good point I want to come back to. I just want to get to this one, Jer Bear's channel. What about the elephant in the room for New York? Turnovers and lack of effort. And does anyone think that New York would have one last season without home court advantage and the referees ignoring?
Can I take that?
I think there's more there. Hold on. First of all, the elephant in the room has a name. Her name is Ellie. That's number one. Number two, yes, we have talked about turnovers and lack of effort, not just already on this episode, but throughout this entire season. And someone earlier said, it kind of reminds me of Seattle. And I put the comment up on the screen, even though I didn't really want to acknowledge it, because I have to also do this again, because we have a Seattle Storm podcast as well. And so I'm just please don't remind me that I'm basically going to have the same conversation over and over again. Now, I will say, and this is where the panic mode is so different. You know what's really funny, Brian, as someone who co-hosts both shows, the panic from, generally speaking, the panic from the comments for the New York podcast, from a team that's in second and has been in second all season, versus the panic from a team that has been high as maybe 3 this season and as low as now 6, 7?
I think 8.
8. Oh gosh, you're right. They are. See, I can't even keep up. You're right. It is. Yep, you're absolutely right. So it's massive panic over here on Gotta Get Up. And it's we can't even talk about how soft Seattle sometimes plays. It's very different, and I'm here for it. Like, I love it. It's just different. And some of y'all are in both chats, so you know what the vibe is. But neither is great. Let's just keep it a buck.
You know,
Both teams have some crap they need to figure out, and what's frustrating for both fan bases, and again for me as the co-host of both shows, is that this is self-inflicted. Not all of it, and some of it is understandable because of situations and circumstances due to injury. However, if you account for those things, there is still more left to give for Seattle. Again, we'll talk about that on Tempestagi Talk on Wednesday night, but definitely for this Liberty squad. So I know I didn't want to get into it too long, and I know you want to come to this comment. So fire away, Brian.
Yeah. One quick Seattle thought. I woke up this morning, looked at the standings. I was like, wait a minute. How the hell have they lost 6 in a row? What the heck is happening over there? So I was like, oh boy. But to this one here, I think for the last part, the ignoring piece, I want to be like an asshole and say, just go back and watch game 4, see the calls New York didn't get, and they would have closed it out there. But that's immaterial to the bigger point that I think Jared Bear is making. The turnovers, it's been like a case of sloppiness for some of those, and just like I think that's where the fatigue that Jeff. Oh, come on! Look, score more than 2 points in the overtime, and then come back to me.
Wow, that's real. Also, Nafisa Collier, and if you want to talk about phantom fouls, what about phantom? Jump balls, jump ball, and a straight hack apparently are the same. Yeah. But anyway.
Yes. I think that to Jerber's earlier point about the schedule, I think everyone across the league has talked about it. It's more game. It's I didn't mean to try to like roast up Jerber. He's cool. I just wanted to get a little bit of jokes up, so it's all good. But as far as the schedule piece, like I think to a player, everyone across the league has talked about how it's more games in the same amount of like schedule time. So I think that's where I think the fatigue comes into play for a lot of teams.
Yeah. Also, like LOL at the schedule. First of all, like as someone who covers the league, and the fact that I did not pay attention enough apparently to know that it was allegedly rival week. I mean, I don't know. I feel like maybe I missed the email, but so did some of the teams. But anyway, we did talk about JJ. I do like this comment by Albert. I'm going to start because I want to get back to that. But the reason I brought up rival week and the schedule is because you have a situation now where both teams have their star player, or at least with the New York Liberty, one of their star players out with injury. Significant player for the narrative, for the storylines, for the productivity of the WNBA, not to mention the leadership, are out. That changes the complexity of both teams, and both teams have found ways to win without them. One much more consistently, Minnesota, than the other. And since we had to wait for rival week before New York and Minnesota played, now not only do we get the rival week game without Nafisa Collier, without Brianna Stewart, not to mention, again, without Niara Sabali, without Kennedy Burke, etc. for the New York Liberty. But now, because of what you just talked about, the more games within the same calendar kind of timeline. The New York Liberty have 3 games before they play Minnesota again, or is it? Well,
2.
Hold on, 2. Yeah. Sorry, Minnesota is the 3rd game. They have 2 games, and they're a back-to-back, mind you, before they play Minnesota again. And how many games, Brian, will Minnesota have between playing New York yesterday and playing them again?
0.
So, listen, I promise you, can y'all please let Kathy and that dress go? if this is, if this is her getting one even, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that the schedule just so happened to work out like that. I don't know.
Also,
Maybe that's
Erica,
just me.
I just had one other rivalry we thought, and it literally just popped into my brain as we were talking about it. I know it's not the highs as it was back in the mid 2010s, but we don't have a single Sparks Lynx matchup when those two teams, like, it was all out. It was all out basketball combat in
Yeah.
those finals. And it's like, I was watching a clip earlier today. Someone mentioned Cheryl Reeve earlier. I was watching a clip from that finals where Cheryl is mic'd up and she's yelling at a referee for a bad call, and she's like, Nneka Gumake is the biggest flopper in the league, and Nneka is mic'd up so she hears it too, and she's like, she called me a flopper? Really? Dang. And I'm like, how do we not? And the Sparks are good now, so that would have been a fun matchup midweek and allow everyone to be like, oh, let's go look at this. Let's go watch the Maya Moore clip. This is gonna be fun.
Brian, I'm so disappointed in you, Brian. I'm so disappointed in you because what you're saying would only follow logic if you knew the history of the WNBA. And are you assuming that the WNBA would lean into its history at the sake of it not including Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, Asia Wilson, Brianna Stewart? Like, none of them were in that. So why should we care, Brian? Why should we care? Because, the league just got popular like 2.5 seconds ago. And, it's wild to me because I believe Across the Timeline did a mock-up of the times that attendance has been over 1 million. And, I think it's about 6 or so times. And do you know that not all of them had anything to do with Caitlin Clark because she's only been in the league for 2 seasons? So, how do you have rivals if we don't get to talk about Caitlin Clark or even Sabrina Ionescu for that matter? What rivalry has Sabrina been a part of? I think you could say New York versus Vegas, but if you looked at how Vegas played last year, is that a rivalry? I don't know. Anyway, of course, this is me being extremely sarcastic. I don't know. The Rivals Week, we might have to talk about that some other time because there's a lot to be said. What's that?
Do you think this is a moment where either one of us should publicly announce our campaign to run for commissioner?
I'm absolutely not running for commissioner. Power corrupts. Absolutely not. I'll just be right on my podcast, like I usually am. Not always, but usually. Speaking of, I was right when it came to not only what Teaspoon was going to say with regard to if Liberty Legends should get rings, which the answer should be absolutely not, of course. But also I was right in saying they absolutely should be honored, and it can be a memento of the championship, but not the actual championship ring. Apparently, that's something that Chicago did. That's cute for Chicago. You know what New York is, Brian?
Not Chicago.
Thank you. Not Chicago. We did not plan that, but we just both knew. Here's what Teaspoon had to say about Liberty Legends getting the same championship ring as the players.
We're wondering, do you think the Legends should get a ring alongside the team?
That's not. Nah, that's just me. That's just me. That's what they work for. They work for that. That's theirs. I don't mind taking a look at it and touching it. Now, another thing, they want to give me one. Heck yeah.
So that was Teaspoon at an event over the weekend because we had another Ring of Honor member that joined. And so the scoop is, so if you look at that clip on Black Rosie Media on YouTube, we have it on TikTok, on social media, you will see that, or there's no pendant, nothing. Teaspoon is not visibly wearing a necklace. If you also check out the New York Liberty social media, you'll see that the legends, all of the legends in attendance, anyone who has played for the New York Liberty, it was the Y2K. So in the 2000s, they brought back alumna from the 2000s and they had them in for the weekend. They got Away hooked them up and some of the other team sponsors, it looks like, but they got a whole luggage case. They got the little carry case and all kinds of other goodies. But what I did not see on Saturday, when we went to the Give Her Flowers event and activation hosted by American Express, I did not see any of the legends wearing pendants. But if you looked at halftime, when Tari Phillips was inducted into the Ring of Honor, all of the current Ring of Honor members, with exception for Rebecca Lobo, who was working and is the reason I would presume she did not wear the pendant, but they were wearing the pendant. So if you know what the New York Liberty Championship ring looks like, that big old crest shield at this point, Brian, that's right in the middle, that
Right,
is
right.
detachable, or it opens, I guess, right? Because that's where the earrings are in there. That is a pendant. And if anyone, actually, New York Liberty fans had an opportunity to purchase some jewelry that had, elements that came from the championship ring. But I do think that's a nice touch, Brian. I mean, I've said this for almost a year now. No, they should not get the same championship ring. Should they be honored? Absolutely. And should they get something to help celebrate the first ever championship in franchise history? Yes. And I do think that the New York Liberty found a good balance here.
Yeah. I think that, I was thinking about it yesterday. The Liberty as an organization have done a really tremendous job of keeping their legends involved and active with the team. Like, it feels like as they've reached new heights and climbed to newer mountains, they've made sure to highlight the people who helped bring them there. And being in the building at halftime for Tari's speech was so moving because she went up there, she had to take a beat because she's like, oh my God, this reaction is so amazing and beautiful. I'm almost at a loss for words. And I think we talk a lot, even just now, about how the league itself is bad at highlighting its greatest players and its greatest memories from pre-2024 in a lot of respects. And I think that the team, the Liberty specific, has done a really good job of that, especially since they came back from their mid-2010s adventures. So I think having that connection with the past and really sort of bringing them into the present, so newer fans who are coming in, the younger fans can really sort of see the foundation that was built and the people who helped lay the success for where the team is now. I feel like that part is really awesome. And it feels like you want to make sure that players have a welcome home, so that way they can always be okay, I'm good. No matter where I go, if I come around Brooklyn, I know that my people are here with me. They're there for me. They're gonna lift me up. They're gonna make me feel solid. That matters a lot. And I think the organization has really gotten that right as far as making sure that, okay, new Ring of Honor members, a legend is usually at the game. We try to have fun Liberty history things to make sure that, I didn't know about Swin Cash. She sounds cool.
Right.
Let me look her up. Oh, Teaspoon is here. Wow, she has such an amazing presence about her. Let me learn a little bit more about her journey. And then you can really sort of unlock more and more of women's basketball along the way. And then as you're a fan of the Liberty, it leads you into checking out other teams' players. You can really sort of dive in there. It becomes almost like a fun game where it's oh wow, can I look this up? Can I look that up? This is really cool. So I love that about what they've been doing recently.
Yeah, I think the size, yes, but Kia Clark for sure. Jonathan Kolb also. The staff really gets it, but Kia. And the rest of the team that was also on the business and marketing side, the community outreach side. I mean, they get it. Yes, Tari Phillips. And I'm gonna pull up some images that we have from her induction, and just I remember, watching Tari in the early days of the New York Liberty. She wasn't, she came over from Orlando, I believe it was. So, not an OG, but still there very early, and a tenacious, absolutely 100% tenacious player. And, that's the kind of player with a little sandpaper. I'm always here for it, Brian. But like you said, she was very emotional when I spoke to her Saturday as well. She talked about, being remembered is not something that at all times that these players thought would happen, nor what they have ever really expected in some ways. And to see how emotional she got, even with us Saturday, the day before, it was huge. And she was so grateful for that part. She was asked about the CBA, and then I followed up by asking what it meant to her, knowing that players like Breanna Stewart, as an example, and the rest of the players in leadership in the collective bargaining agreement want to include retired players as a part of their consideration. Because here's the thing, Diana Taurasi, voted the GOAT, right? Leading up to year 25, I think it was.
Yeah, with the fancy new basketball to go with it. During the finals.
Yeah, exactly. Sue Bird, Sylvia Fowles, Maya Moore now. These are players who are retired players. And you can, a lot of people, again, I was being very facetious, very sarcastic earlier, talking about Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, and they will be the next wave of retired players that unequivocally change the game. But to say that the game had never reached these heights, again, statistically, mathematically, not only is that false, but we're seeing the closest wave, at least in my time covering as a journalist, that's the kind of the old guard and the first really big boom, I think, since the league started. Then Stewie gives it another bump. Then Asia gives it another bump. And that's the beauty of it. You go from the legends to Sue Bird, and maybe there's a handful of players in between, because I kind of consider Candace a part of the group that's just starting to retire out, right? But the fact that there's such a large quote unquote gap, but then after the next boom of the Sues, the Tarasis, the Pennies, Sylvia Fowles, then coming right on their heels again. Stewie is going to be the next group, right, of retired players, Dewana Bonner, players like that. And then right on their heels is Asia and her whole crew, Leash. It's really Alyssa Thomas, probably. It's so great to see that people are starting to take the retired players seriously, and not just Teaspoon, not just Lisa Leslie, not just Cheryl Swoops. And Rebecca Lobo, she stayed within the conversation because now she's on the broadcast side. There's so much more than just those players in every generation. And so I love that the players that, again, were a part of one of the waves of irrevocably, changing the league are the ones that I think are going to also help them solidify a space financially and otherwise for retired players.
Yeah, like as you're talking about that, like the phrase labor solidarity, it immediately jumps to mind, because that's how you build solidarity. Like you make sure that you don't leave your people behind. You make sure that they're okay. You make sure that they're able to fully bask in the rewards of their labor and your labor at the same time. Like the players really help the league survive, because I think we might have talked about it in the newsletter a while back, but like the television partner in the 2000s jammed them up, made it really impossible for the league to like function. And now they made it through that. Like they made it through the lost years, so to speak, for lack of a better term. And now they're at this point where they started really getting better and better. Now now the investment from the television partners are there. The players are bringing it as usual, as they always do. And now they've been able to really enter into new arenas like the Met Gala, feature stories, podcasting, all of these kind
Yes.
of things. So I feel like the players of this generation have taken what the past have built, and they're also making sure that as we're going into new arenas and new adventures, like you bring everybody with you. Like you wouldn't have had to be like on Team USA, for example. You wouldn't have had to have been like, an MVP player, but we're gonna make sure that you're good. And we want to make sure that you get those benefits and you get that support, because I think especially athletics, man, it takes so much out of your body, like being an athlete, and especially
Yeah.
the treatment and the advances in the medical field have gotten so much better from like 96, 97 to now. And
Mhm.
having players be able to access needed medical services,
Yes.
family planning, all of these things
Yes.
are really important, not just for them, but for their families as well too. As
Right.
you're taking care of them, you're almost taking care of the entire village at the same time.
100%. And honestly, Brian, that makes a lot of sense. That's logical. And just for those who aren't familiar, on the screen, you're seeing from, if you're looking at the screen, as we all are, from left to right, you've got Teresa Weatherspoon, all black. Then you've got Kia Clark in the cream top and the orange bottoms. Then that's Clara Wusai with a little tan action going on there. Smack dab in the middle at the timeline, if you will, is the new inductee, Tari Phillips. Then you've got Kim Hampton, that's Sue Wicks, and that's C Rob, right?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. I was like, I think the hat threw me off, but those are, of course, your Ring of Honor members that were in attendance welcoming Tari Phillips. So again, it's this crop of players that will have the pendants that they are an ode to the OGs, while also honoring, of course, and commemorating the 2024 championship. So I guess we'll have to see if the New York Liberty keep winning championships. Does that mean Ring of Honor members are going to have more of a charm bracelet than a pendant necklace? I don't know. But there's definitely a lot more basketball in this season, let alone the years to come, Brian, to talk about before we can get to that. Manuel, congratulations. Thank you as always. You've been joining over the years. We're so happy for you.
Yeah.
Opportunity to become a supervisor. I hope it all goes well in the way that you want, and that honors the work and commitment that you've had. I know you've talked about work every once in a while. I mean, all of the fits had their own style. I love it. I was here for it. But Clara Wu, she don't miss. You talked about them going to Met Gala. Like that child, she don't miss. I mean, what do her closets? Because I don't think there's just one. What do they look like? I mean, we kind of get to see what the courtside fits are pretty nice. Gerber saying Maya Moore is better than all of them. I mean,
Questions about, right?
Listen, I ain't got much to argue about when it comes to Maya Moore being the greatest, but just because she quiet, vocally doesn't mean her game is quiet. Her game's just about as loud as it can be.
Yep.
Just about as loud as it can be. But I do want to come back, Brian, on a not necessarily a somber note, but definitely more of a direct note here. It was one of our colleagues that is on the side of the question that a lot of people are debating, and I do think, as we have stressed, I shared that clip not to put Jeff or the question itself on the spot. Listen, I've been on the other side of that, where people, including people that I actually kind of work with now, not kind of, that I do work with, being like, oh, that was a dumb question. Listen, are there questions that, whether you want to say they're dumb or not, dumb is, I think, a shortcut. There are definitely questions that are triggering. There are questions that are complex and complicated. There are questions that are inappropriate. But to ask a question to an athlete, especially after a loss, is something that is difficult. I want to put that out there. And I do think there is something to when we see 2 games lost to Minnesota and Atlanta now knocking on the door, trying to take over the 2 spot. Are there things that Minnesota has, at least right now, that New York doesn't? And whether Jonquel Jones or Natasha Cloud answer that question today, tomorrow, or for however many years they play basketball, if they don't want to answer that, that's perfectly okay as well. And to answer that and maybe feel like they have to put their team on the spot, that's not always something that they might want to do, and that's fair too. But I do think it's a worthwhile question, and one that, again, since these teams they're gonna go head to head again, Brian, we're gonna have to talk about it. So I just wanted to come back to that kind of as we wrap up here. Hey, Keegan, thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate this. Got to run, but so grateful you two cover the libs. So appreciate the ability to cover big picture and microscopic with an understanding of history. Keegan, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for that. That's really what we aim to do here. I got to get up a podcast for New York Liberty fans, and I'm with you. Right now, this is exactly what Minnesota has that New York does not. And we haven't talked about Minnesota all season because, again, we just saw them 2 times in a row for the first time this year. But we definitely have talked inconsistency with the New York Liberty. Do they have potential? Do they have the capability? Do they have the grit? And this is what I liked about what Tosh said. She said, I'm excited to find out. And I think there's a few ways you could look at it. Does she not know? I think that's a little bit overselling what she meant. I think what she meant was, okay, we have grit, and it got tested in a way that maybe surprised us, and where we, in the moment, we didn't match the energy. And I think that's why she's excited to see how they respond.
Yeah.
Because they're going to have a chance, Brian, to respond.
Yeah. And also, like, the thing, it's one thing to sort of like tie back to W history. Like, it's one thing to be a great team over a year. It's another to be like one of those, like, you can't tell the story of the league without this era of a team. Like, you could the Lynx of the mid 2010s, Sparks as well, with the early 2020s, and the Liberty hope for the mid 2020s and beyond. Like, what is it when you see a competitor that's right at your level, and how do you match up with them over a series of years?
100%.
Like, and I think for Tosh, the excitement is in, okay, we're A+ team, they're an A+ team.
100%.
Let's get it on and
chess
see
match.
Who's the top dog around these parts. Like, that part is so fascinating. And every time I see the Lynx in person, I turn into like half a Cheryl Reeve stand account because I'm like, man, look at how they play. I'm like, every time I'm like, damn, they're so smooth. You can't make no mistakes. And like, that's as far as watching a game, like, you want to see that, because it's like, okay, to beat a team like that, your level of execution and focus and precision has to be A+.
100%.
No bad mistakes. No, I'm not gonna put a hat on a hat. None of that. It's hey, if you want to be the best there, that's the team you got to go through. And I love watching that. And I think for players, like, because players are all competitive psychos. Like, they're chill. Oh yeah, we're nice. Oh, I'm nice. I got a chill vibe. No, you're not. No, you're not. You want to rip the opponent's throat out.
100%. And that's why there's a cooling off period. And some players need more than 15 minutes. Because Courtney Williams was like, at All-Star, one of the questions that she was asked was like, what's your best Ellie impression? She's like, no, I don't do anything New York. And then on Sunday yesterday, she was asked something about New York, and she was like, oh no, we hate New York. She's like, yeah, me and my teammates. Now, granted, Cheryl Reeve was like, the past is the past. Somebody else said the same thing. Courtney's like, nope, my whole team, my family and them can't stand anything New York. So, I think it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be interesting for sure to see the moves and counter moves. Because again, we get to see it a few more times this regular season. And then we hope for a safe, healthy, and speedy recovery for both Stewie and Fee. And when these two teams are healthy, because the truth of the matter is you never know. I mean, Lynx had to do it with a very banged up Lana Smith last year. And honestly, I've said this before on the podcast, so I don't mind saying it again. Lan doesn't get hurt as bad as she does.
Hey, you never know. You never know. You never know.
I'm just saying. And now they added Shepard and a little, not as much height, but definitely some defensive prowess with Carrington. Woo!
Hey.
I said it on CBS. I'll say it here. New York Liberty won free agency with Meesseman. And once again, we had so much to talk about that we don't do a deep dive. But I have an article coming, so we'll do a deep dive on Meesseman and we'll talk about that. But Liberty win free agency, and then Lynx win trade deadline. A perfect fit for what they're trying to do, with potential to help them be good for years to come. Good move. Hits immediate, intermediate, and potentially long term. But we'll see, because I think Carrington's coming up on a UFA year, so we'll see. But like I said, plenty of basketball to be played. Manuel, congratulations. Al Page, thanks for joining us. Hey, Damien, we'll see if the Liberty are finished. How can they be finished? The season's not even over. Keegan, again, thank you so much for the super chat. Amir, thank you for joining. Always, yes, always looking like $1 billion. We love to see it. And, we had Gerbear here. Who else? Winsome came through. I did see Tulip. We didn't talk much about California. This was our East Coast show, so we'll get into that. Albert, thank you so much. Varnell stopped through. CD, Steven, thank you. Thank you, everyone. If I missed anyone, thank you so much for stopping through. For Brian Florentin, our co-host and curator of our Women's Basketball Roundup newsletter. My name is Erica L. Ayala, your host, your co-host, and head Black Rosie in charge, as I like to say. And this has been an episode of Gotta Get Up, a podcast for you, New York Liberty and women's basketball fans. We will catch you on the next episode, but now we have to, just like Ben Stiller has, and apparently Fitzy. Among others, it's time to wave. Thank y'all so much. We appreciate you. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace out, everybody.